My phone buzzed during the Thanksgiving toast. I glanced down. A text from Michael, my son-in-law. Not from my daughter Sarah. 3 words. Please come inside. I was standing on the back porch of their new house in Wilmington, North Carolina, watching the November sun dip below the pine trees. Inside, 20 voices mingled in celebration. Outside, my hands were already trembling. Something was wrong. I'd felt it the moment I walked through their door 2 hours earlier. The way Sarah's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way my granddaughter, Mia, just 6 years old, stayed unusually quiet in the corner, clutching her stuffed elephant. The way Michael's mother, Constance, held court at the head of the dining table, like a queen presiding over her subjects. I'm Richard Foster, 63 years old. I raised Sarah by myself after her mother passed when she was 8. For 40 years, I worked in the justice system. Most people who know me think I was just another lawyer. Sarah knows I practiced family law. What she doesn't know, what I never told her, to protect her from being used or targeted, is that for the last 15 of those 40 years, I served as the district attorney for New Hanover County. I retired quietly 6 months ago, moved to a small house near the coast, started fishing, started sleeping past 6 in the morning for the first time in my adult life. I kept my career mostly private, even from Michael. Sarah knew I worked with families and children, knew I cared deeply about the vulnerable. She didn't know I'd put away hundreds of abusers. Didn't know I had connections throughout every level of law enforcement, child protective services, and the family court system across 3 counties. That knowledge, those connections, stayed dormant. Until Michael sent that text, I walked back inside through the kitchen door. The smell of turkey and sweet potato casserole hung heavy in the air. In the dining room, Constance was holding court, her perfectly coiffed silver hair catching the chandelier light. She'd been talking non-stop since I arrived, correcting Sarah's table settings, commenting on the dry turkey, explaining to everyone how Thanksgiving was properly celebrated in Charleston, where she was from. Michael stood near the kitchen, phone still in his hand. His face was pale. "What happened?" I asked quietly. "Just, please." Dining room. Mia. I moved past him. The conversation at the table had shifted. Constance's voice rose above the others. "Mia, sweetheart, come here." My granddaughter slowly approached her grandmother. Mia's dark curls, she got them from Sarah, who got them from her mother, hung down around her shoulders. She was wearing a purple dress Sarah had bought her specifically for today. "Now," Constance said, her tone syrupy sweet but with steel underneath, "are you going to apologize for being rude to Grandma Constance?" I looked at Sarah. She was frozen, fork halfway to her mouth, eyes wide. I looked at Michael. He was staring at his plate. I wasn't trying to be rude," Mia said softly. "Weren't you?" Constance's smile was sharp. "When Grandma tells you to eat something, you eat it. That's what polite children do. Your mother clearly hasn't taught you manners, but I will." "Mom," Michael started, but his voice was weak. "Hush, Michael. This is between me and my granddaughter." I stepped fully into the dining room now. The other guests, Michael's aunt and uncle, a few neighbors, were staring at their plates, pretending this wasn't happening. "Constance," I said evenly, "what's going on?" She turned to me, that same steel-edged smile. "Oh, Richard, just a little lesson in manners for Mia. She refused to eat the cranberry sauce I specially made. Can you imagine? After I spent hours in the kitchen." I looked at Mia. Her little face was turning red, not from embarrassment, from something else. "Mia," I said gently, crouching down to her level, "are you okay?" "Grandpa," I told her. "I told Grandma Constance I can't eat cranberries. They make me sick." My blood went cold. "She's being dramatic," Constance said dismissively. "Children nowadays, so coddled. A little tartness never hurt anyone." "Mia has a food allergy," Sarah said suddenly, finding her voice. "I told you this, Constance, 3 times. She can't have anything with red dye or certain acidic fruits. It causes a severe reaction." "Oh, nonsense. You young mothers with your allergies and your sensitivities. In my day, we ate what we were given and said thank you." I stood up slowly. "Did you give her cranberries, knowing she's allergic?" "I gave her a small taste to prove she's not allergic. Just being picky, like her mother. Constance's eyes flicked to Sarah with undisguised contempt. Too much coddling creates weak children. The room went silent. Mia's hand was at her throat. Small red welts were appearing on her neck. "Sarah," I said quietly, "get the Benadryl. Now." Sarah was already moving, but her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her napkin. Michael finally stood up, but he looked lost, torn between his wife and his mother. "This is ridiculous," Constance announced to the room. "Making such a fuss over a little." "Constance." My voice cut through the room like a blade. 40 years of courtroom authority packed into 3 syllables. You deliberately fed a known allergen to a child. That's not a difference of opinion. That's assault. Her face turned crimson. "How dare you? I am her grandmother. I have every right to. You have no rights that supersede her safety." "Michael," Constance turned to her son, "are you going to let this man speak to your mother this way?" Michael opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Mia, whose eyes were watering, whose breathing was getting slightly labored. "I think," he started, "I think Mia needs to go to her room and rest." "Michael," I said quietly, "your daughter needs to go to the emergency room. Sarah, call ahead. Let them know we're coming." "This is absurd." Constance stood up so fast her chair scraped backward. "She's fine. You're all overreacting. This is exactly what's wrong with this generation. No backbone, no common sense, just hysteria over every little thing." I moved between Constance and Mia. I didn't touch her, didn't raise my voice, just stood there, and something in my eyes made Constance take a step back. "We're taking Mia to the hospital," I said. "Sarah, get the car keys. Michael, you have a choice to make right now about who you're protecting." For a long moment, Michael stood frozen. Then he looked at his daughter, really looked at her, at the hives spreading down her arms, at the way she was trying not to cry, and something broke in him. "Mom," he said to Constance, "you need to leave." "What?" "You need to leave our house. Now." "Michael Joseph Hartford, I am your mother, and that's my daughter." His voice was shaking, but he didn't back down. "You deliberately hurt my daughter, Dad and I. We need to get her to the hospital. You need to go." Constance's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, disbelief. Finally, she grabbed her purse from the counter. "Fine. Fine. When you all come to your senses, when you realize what a mistake this is, don't come crawling back to me." She swept toward the door, then turned back. "You're raising a weak, spoiled child, and you're too blind to see it. That girl needs discipline, not coddling. I was only trying to help." She slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. Sarah was already hustling Mia toward the car. The little girl was holding her elephant, trying to be brave. Michael grabbed his keys, still looking stunned. I followed them out, but I didn't get in the car. "Richard?" Sarah called from the passenger seat. "Aren't you coming?" "I'll meet you there," I said. "I need to make a call first." Something in my tone made Sarah pause, but Mia needed attention. They drove off, leaving me standing in the driveway as the November evening settled in cold and sharp around me. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, found the number I was looking for. "Detective Martinez? It's Richard Foster. Yes, I know, it's Thanksgiving. I need a favor." Inside the house, I could hear the remaining guests quietly gathering their things to leave. Outside, I could see Constance's car still parked down the street. She hadn't left. She was sitting there, probably calling relatives, probably building her narrative about the ungrateful family who threw her out on Thanksgiving. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Detective Carlos Martinez and I went back 20 years. I'd prosecuted 3 of his biggest cases. He'd testified in my courtroom more times than either of us could count. When he answered the phone, there was warmth in his voice, but it faded when he heard my tone. "What do you need, Richard?" "Background check. Constance Marie Hartford, maiden name Beaumont, approximately 62 years old, from Charleston, South Carolina. I need to know if there's anything in her history, especially anything involving children." There was a pause. "This official? Not yet, but it might be. Give me till tomorrow morning, Carlos. If there's anything at all about abuse, neglect, protective orders, I need to know tonight." Another pause. Then, you think she's dangerous? I think she just deliberately fed an allergen to my 6-year-old granddaughter to prove a point about parenting. I think she knew it would cause a reaction. And I think she didn't care. Jesus. Give me 2 hours. I stood in that driveway for a long time after I hung up. The neighbors filed out past me, offering awkward condolences, pretending they hadn't just witnessed what they witnessed. Michael's aunt stopped, put a hand on my arm. That woman, she said quietly, has always been difficult. Michael's father, God rest his soul, he used to. She trailed off, shook her head. Be careful, Richard. Constance doesn't forget slights, and she doesn't forgive. I watched Constance's car finally pull away from the curb and disappear down the street. Neither do I said. The emergency room wasn't busy on Thanksgiving night. Most people were home with family. Mia was already being treated when I arrived, IV antihistamines, monitoring, the works. Sarah sat beside her daughter's bed, holding her small hand. Michael paced in the hallway. When he saw me, he stopped. I'm sorry, he said, immediately. I should have stopped her earlier. I should have protected Mia from the start. My mother. She's always been so. I don't know how to. Sit down, Michael. We sat in the uncomfortable plastic chairs. Through the window, I could see Mia talking quietly with Sarah, the color returning to her face. How long has Constance been like this? I asked. Michael's shoulders sagged. Always? I don't know. Growing up, it was. She had rules. So many rules. About how to sit, how to talk, what to eat, when to speak. Dad was gentler, but he worked a lot. Mom ran the house. She always said she was preparing me for the real world, teaching me discipline. Did she ever hurt you? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was barely a whisper. Not physically. I mean, she'd grab my arm sometimes, shake me if I wasn't paying attention, slap my hand if I reached for the wrong fork, but it wasn't. I mean, lots of parents disciplined their kids that way back then, right? I thought about my own daughter. I thought about the thousands of cases I'd seen over 40 years, the parents who said I'm just being strict, the ones who said I turned out fine, the ones who damaged their children and called it love. Michael, I said carefully, has Constance ever done anything like this before? To Mia? He was quiet. Then, last month, we had dinner at her place. Mia spilled juice on the tablecloth. Mom grabbed her wrist, hard, left a bruise. Sarah wanted to say something, but I told her it was an accident. That Mom didn't mean it. And before that, she criticizes Mia constantly. Her hair is too messy. Her clothes are too casual. She runs too loud, talks too much. Last Easter, she locked Mia in the guest room for an hour because Mia interrupted her while she was talking. Said Mia needed to learn patience. He looked up at me, eyes red. I told myself it was just old-fashioned parenting. Strict, but not abusive. But tonight, watching Mia's face when she couldn't breathe. God, Richard, what have I been doing? My phone buzzed. A text from Martinez. Call me. It's bad. Michael, I said, standing up. Stay with your family. I need to make another call. I stepped outside into the cold November night. Dialed Martinez back. Richard, where are you? Hospital. Mia's stable. What did you find? Constance Marie Hartford, née Beaumont, 62 years old, Charleston, South Carolina. Papers rustled in the background. She has a record, Richard. Nothing that would show on a basic background check. But I called in a favor with Charleston PD. And 1,987. Report filed by a school counselor. Suspected child abuse regarding her then 7-year-old son, Michael. My grip on the phone tightened. Investigation was opened, but never went anywhere. Husband intervened, moved the family, got lawyers involved. Report was filed away. But Richard, there's more. 1,995. Another report, this time from a neighbor, said they heard screaming from the house. Police did a wellness check. Constance claimed Michael, then 15, was out of control. Showed them a hole he'd punched in the wall. Officers accepted her explanation. What else? 2003. Protective order filed against her by her brother's ex-wife. Constance apparently grabbed her nephew at a family gathering, shook him hard enough to cause bruising. The ex-wife got a temporary order keeping Constance away from the kids. It expired after a year, but it's in the system. 2003, I repeated. 22 years ago. And nothing since? Not officially. But I talked to a social worker in Charleston who remembered the family. Off the record, she said there were always whispers about Constance. Nothing provable, nothing actionable, but whispers. Send me everything you have. Richard, this is Thanksgiving. Whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything yet. I'm just gathering information, like I taught you to do. A pause. Then, the family court judge in New Hanover County is Judge Patricia Odom. She worked under you when you were DA. If you wanted to file for a protective order, I'll call her tomorrow, I said. Thanks, Carlos. I stood there in the hospital parking lot, watching my breath fog in the cold air. 40 years in the system. 40 years watching children suffer because adults around them failed to act, failed to see, failed to believe. I'd seen this pattern before. The controlling grandmother, the enabling son, the slow escalation from criticism to control to violence. The Allergen incident wasn't an accident. It wasn't even about proving Mia wasn't allergic. It was about establishing dominance, about showing Sarah and Michael who was in charge, about testing boundaries to see how far she could push. If I did nothing, it would happen again. And next time, it might not be an allergic reaction. It might be worse. But if I acted, I'd be inserting myself into my daughter's life in a way I never had before. Using my old position, my old connections, my old authority, becoming the very thing I'd tried not to be, the father who solved problems with power instead of guidance. Through the hospital window, I could see Sarah stroking Mia's hair. Could see Michael sitting beside them now, holding his daughter's other hand. Could see my granddaughter, small and brave and vulnerable in that hospital bed. The choice wasn't hard. I went back inside. Found Sarah in the hallway while a nurse checked Mia's vitals. Dad, she said, hugging me tightly. Thank you for being here, for seeing what was happening. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I guided her to the chairs. About my career. About what I actually did for the last 15 years. Her eyebrows rose. You were a family lawyer. I know. I was the district attorney, I said quietly, for New Hanover County. Before that, I was a prosecutor, specializing in child abuse and domestic violence cases. I kept it quiet because I didn't want you to be targeted. Didn't want people to use you to get to me. But tonight, I think you need to know. She stared at me. You were the DA? For 15 years? And you never. I wanted you to have a normal life. Wanted to just be Dad, not the DA who put people in prison. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, why are you telling me now? Because I just ran a background check on Constance, and I found things, reports, patterns, evidence that tonight wasn't an isolated incident. I told her everything, Martinez's findings. The reports from 1,987 and 1,995. The protective order, the whispers. By the time I finished, Sarah's face was white. Michael's mother. She abused him? I think so. Not in ways that left visible scars, but in ways that left him unable to stand up to her, unable to protect himself or his family from her. Oh my God. Sarah put her head in her hands. The things she's said to me, the way she treats Mia, I thought. I thought I was being too sensitive, that I needed to respect Michael's family. Be patient. Give her a chance. You were being gaslit, I said. You were told your concerns weren't valid, that you were overreacting. That's what abusers do. They make you doubt yourself. What do we do? Tomorrow morning, I'm filing for an emergency protective order on Mia's behalf. I have a friend who's a family court judge. The evidence we have, the hospital records from tonight, the background check, Michael's testimony, if he's willing, should be enough for a temporary order. And then what? Then Constance won't be allowed within 100 yards of Mia. Or you. Or Michael, if he wants to be included. It'll be temporary at first. Maybe 30 days. But if she violates it, if she tries to contact you, if she shows up at your house or Mia's school, she'll be arrested. Sarah was crying now. I wanted to believe she'd get better, that if we just gave her more chances, showed her more patience, she'd realize how much we loved her and change. Some people don't change, I said gently. Some people see kindness as weakness, see patience as permission. Constance hurt your daughter tonight, Sarah. Deliberately, knowingly, to prove a point. That's not someone who's going to change with more chances. Michael's going to be devastated. Michael's going to be free, I corrected. For the first time in his life, probably. It won't feel like freedom at first. It'll feel like betrayal, like loss. But eventually, he'll see it for what it is. Through the window, we watched Mia laugh at something the nurse said, color fully back in her face. Breathing easy. Safe. Do it, Sarah said. File the order. Protect her. The next morning, I was in Judge Patricia Odom's chambers at 8:30. She'd been one of my most trusted prosecutors 15 years ago. Now she presided over family court with the same fierce dedication to protecting the vulnerable. Richard, she said, standing to shake my hand, when you called last night, I almost didn't believe it was you. Thought retirement meant fishing and golf? I thought so too. Then my granddaughter ended up in the ER. I laid out everything. The Thanksgiving incident, the hospital records, Martinez's background check, the pattern of control and escalation. By the time I finished, Patricia was nodding. Emergency protective order is justified, she said. I'll grant it this afternoon. Constance Hartford is not to contact, approach, or communicate with Mia Foster Hartford in any way. Duration: 90 days, with a hearing scheduled for day 85 to determine if it should be extended. What about Sarah and Michael? They can be added if they request it. But the child is the priority. She looked at me over her reading glasses. Richard, you know this is going to get ugly. Constance will lawyer up. She'll paint herself as the victim. She'll claim this is parental alienation, grandparent rights violation, all of it. Let her. I have hospital records showing she deliberately endangered a child. I have reports going back 40 years showing a pattern of abuse. And I have 40 years of experience prosecuting people exactly like her. Patricia smiled grimly. Welcome back, Richard, even if just for one case. The protective order was served that afternoon. Constance's response came within an hour. A 3-page letter to Michael, delivered by certified mail, detailing her heartbreak and betrayal, and demanding he control his wife and father-in-law. Michael brought the letter to our family meeting that evening. Sarah had made coffee. Mia was at a friend's house, being 6 and carefree, unaware of the legal machinery spinning around her. She wants me to call her, Michael said, to talk this through, to fix this misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Sarah said. She hurt our daughter. I know that. But she's my mother. She raised me. He trailed off, staring at the letter. Michael, I said carefully, what do you remember from when you were 7? He looked up, confused. What? 1,987. You were 7. Do you remember a school counselor asking you questions? Maybe a police officer visiting your house? His face went pale. How do you... That was nothing. Mom said it was a misunderstanding. Some teacher who didn't like her parenting style. There was a formal report filed, I said. Suspected child abuse. The investigation was dropped, but the report still exists. No, that wasn't real. Mom explained it. I was clumsy. I bruised easily. The teacher was new and didn't understand. Michael, Sarah said gently, taking his hand. You told me last night about your wrist, about being locked in the guest room, about being grabbed and shaken. Those weren't accidents. He pulled his hand away, stood up, paced to the window. You don't understand. She was strict, yes, but she was preparing me for the world, teaching me discipline, respect. Everything I am today, I owe to. Everything you are today, I interrupted, is despite her. Not because of her. He spun around. You don't know her like I do. You're right, I don't. But I know abusers. I prosecuted them for 40 years. And I'm telling you, your mother follows the exact same pattern. Control disguised as care, abuse disguised as discipline, isolation disguised as family loyalty. She's not an abuser. Michael, Sarah's voice cracked through the room. She fed our daughter something she knew would hurt her. She watched Mia struggle to breathe and called it being dramatic. What would you call that? Silence. Michael stood there, breathing hard, eyes wet. Finally, he sank back into his chair. When I was 15, he said quietly, I told my dad I wanted to go to college in California, get away from Charleston. Mom, she didn't yell. She just got quiet. Said if I left, I'd be disrespecting everything she'd sacrificed for me, that I'd be proving I was selfish, ungrateful, that I'd regret it for the rest of my life. He looked up at us. So I went to college in South Carolina, stayed close, visited every weekend, and eventually, I stopped thinking about California, stopped thinking about what I wanted, just did what she expected. That's called coercive control, I said. I thought it was love. Sometimes they look the same, Sarah said, until they don't. Michael was quiet for a long time. Then, what happens now? Now you decide, I said. The protective order covers Mia, but you and Sarah can request to be added to it if you want. Or you can maintain contact with Constance and try to set boundaries. But Michael, I need you to understand something. She's going to push. She's going to test every boundary. She's going to call you crying, call you angry, show up at your work, send relatives to intervene. That's what people like her do when they lose control. What would you do? He asked. If you were me, I thought about my own daughter, about the years after her mother died, when it was just us, about the mistakes I'd made, the times I'd been too strict or too lenient, too present or too absent, about the constant fear that I was failing her. I'd protect my child, I said, above everything else, above guilt, above obligation, above fear. I'd protect my child. Michael nodded slowly. Then he looked at Sarah. I want to be added to the order. Are you sure? She asked. No, but I'm sure about protecting Mia, and I'm starting to understand that protecting her means protecting us from my mother. Sarah reached for his hand. This time, he didn't pull away. The hearing for the protective order extension happened 3 months later. Constance showed up with 2 lawyers and a binder full of character references. She wore a conservative navy suit and pearls. Looked like everyone's sweet grandmother. Her lawyers argued that the Thanksgiving incident was a misunderstanding. That Constance didn't know about Mia's allergy, despite being told multiple times. That she was a devoted grandmother being unfairly persecuted by a vindictive son-in-law and his father-in-law. Then I took the stand. I detailed my 40 years in the justice system, my experience with child abuse cases, the pattern I'd observed in Constance's behavior, the background check results, the hospital records, Michael's testimony about his own childhood. Constance's lawyers tried to object, tried to claim the old reports were irrelevant. Judge Odom overruled them. This court has a responsibility to protect children, she said. And the pattern of behavior described here is deeply concerning. When it was Constance's turn to testify, she was poised, tearful at the right moments, indignant at others. She talked about her love for her granddaughter, her heartbreak at being kept away, her confusion about how a simple misunderstanding had led to such drastic measures. Then Sarah's lawyer asked a simple question. Mrs. Hartford, did you know Mia was allergic to cranberries before Thanksgiving? I was told she had some sensitivities, but children often. Did you know, specifically, that cranberries could cause a dangerous reaction? Constance paused. I may have been told something, but you were told 3 times. According to text messages we have from Sarah. Once in October, once in early November, once the morning of Thanksgiving. Is that correct? I receive a lot of messages. I don't always... Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit F. Text messages from October 15th, showing Sarah explicitly telling Mrs. Hartford about Mia's cranberry allergy and asking her not to serve them at Thanksgiving. The messages were projected on a screen, clear, explicit, impossible to misunderstand. Constance's lawyer tried to recover. My client simply forgot in the stress of preparing a large meal. She didn't forget, I said from my seat. Sarah's lawyer shot me a look, but I continued. She remembered. She just didn't care, because she needed to prove a point about who was in charge. Mr. Foster, please, Judge Odom said, but there was no real reprimand in her voice. The hearing lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Judge Odom extended the protective order for 2 years. Mrs. Hartford, she said, I find your testimony unconvincing and your actions on Thanksgiving unconscionable. You deliberately endangered a child to assert your authority. That is not love. That is abuse. This order will remain in effect for 24 months. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. Constance's face went white, then red. She started to stand, to argue, but her lawyers pulled her back down. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Constance's lawyers had leaked the story, trying to paint her as a victim of grandparent alienation. It backfired when a local news anchor recognized my name and dug into my background. Former DA protects granddaughter ran the headline the next day, with a photo of me walking Sarah and Michael to their car. Constance disappeared from our lives after that. We heard through Michael's aunt that she moved back to Charleston, told everyone there that her ungrateful son and his manipulative wife had stolen her granddaughter, built a new narrative where she was the victim. Michael started therapy, unpacked 40 years of damage, started understanding that strict wasn't the same as abusive, that fear wasn't the same as respect, that control wasn't the same as love. Sarah flourished. The constant anxiety of managing Constance's expectations, walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace, it all lifted. She started painting again, something she'd given up years ago. And Mia? Mia turned 7, then 8, grew confident and loud and joyful, talked back sometimes, made messes, interrupted conversations. All the things Constance would have punished her for. All the things that proved she was a healthy, happy child. On Mia's 8th birthday, she asked me a question while we were fishing off the pier near my house. Grandpa Richard, why doesn't Grandma Constance come to my parties anymore? I'd been preparing for this question for 2 years. Talked to child psychologists. Read books on age-appropriate honesty. Sometimes, I said carefully, people aren't safe to be around, even if they're family, even if they love us in their own way. Your mom and dad and I decided that Grandma Constance had done some things that weren't safe, and we needed to protect you. Like the cranberries? Yes, like the cranberries. She was quiet, watching her line bob in the water. Then, did she want to hurt me? I think she wanted to be in control more than she wanted to keep you safe. And that's not okay. Mom says you used to be in charge of keeping kids safe. In court. I did. Were you good at it? I thought about the cases I'd won, the ones I'd lost, the children I'd saved, the ones I'd failed. I tried to be, I said. Thanks for keeping me safe, Grandpa. She said it so simply, so easily, like it was the most natural thing in the world for a grandfather to protect his granddaughter. And maybe it was. We sat there as the sun set over the Carolina coast, watching the water and the sky turn colors I could never quite name, and I thought about the phone call I'd made that Thanksgiving evening, the one that had set everything in motion. I thought about the decision I'd made to use my old connections, my old authority, my old power, whether it was right or wrong, whether I'd overstepped or done exactly what needed to be done. But mostly, I watched my granddaughter laugh as she reeled in a fish, fearless and free, and I knew I'd make the same call again, every single time.